And it is a compelling contest. Here's Simon.
And they're off for the Grade 1 Bet365 Celebration Chase. Editor de Gite into an early lead. Elixir de Nuts on the far side. And Jonbon going forward. Nubi Negra out wide at the first fence. Jonbon just had to put himself right there. El Fabiolo just tracking them in the double green jacket to the outside of Edwardstone, and Boot Hill is at the back. The second is an open ditch, which Jonbon was quite flamboyant at there, alongside Editor de Gite. Elixir de Nuts on the far side, and then in between runners is El Fabiolo, in between Edwardstone and Nubi Negra in the white jacket on the outside, and 3 or 4 lengths to Boot Hill. Racing towards this right-hand turn, and Editor de Gite and Niall Houlihan from Jonbon, last year's winner on the inside, unbeaten in 3 starts here, 3 visits to Sandown. El Fabiolo, his old rival, in third as they make this turn. Elixir de Nuts towards the inside, Edwardstone close up, Nubi Negra and Boot Hill. Down the side of the course and on towards the downhill fence, Jonbon and Editor de Gite almost stride for stride going into this. El Fabiolo is tracking them as they jump it, with Edwardstone on their heels, Elixir de Nuts up the inside, Nubi Negra and Boot Hill. Into the back straight, the emphasis very much on the jumping down the back here. And Jonbon takes over from in second Editor de Gite as they arrive at the first plain fence. Jonbon over, Editor de Gite, and El Fabiolo was a bit slow there. Slightly missed that one. On towards the next. Jonbon, Editor de Gite, Elixir de Nuts, El Fabiolo better. Then Edwardstone, Nubi Negra, Boot Hill. Jumping an open ditch. Jonbon was very good there. El Fabiolo just brushed through the top of it as they head on halfway down the back straight, and it's Jonbon by 2 lengths. So Elixir de Nuts, Editor de Gite, El Fabiolo towards the outside, Edwardstone on the inside as they take this one, and then Nubi Negra and finally Boot Hill. On towards the 3 railway fences. And Jonbon is going to rise first at the first of them, but El Fabiolo is getting closer to him. And it's Jonbon from El Fabiolo. Elixir de Nuts, Edwardstone is close up. Then Editor de Gite over the next, seeing a good stride there on Jonbon was Nico de Boinville, and the horse came up very well indeed. The last in the back straight, Jonbon again very slick. El Fabiolo was not so good again. Elixir de Nuts around the inside of Edwardstone and El Fabiolo as they now exit the back straight. There's a gap of about 3 or 4 lengths from Jonbon to the chasing trio. Boot Hill is staying on a bit from then Nubi Negra and Editor de Gite. So Jonbon leads the way in the celebration as they race towards the pond fence. Jonbon by 3 lengths to El Fabiolo. Edwardstone chasing as well. Elixir de Nuts is the latest to cry enough. Boot Hill continues to run on from the back. Here it is then. This is the pond fence. Jonbon in a bit tight, but El Fabiolo wasn't great either. Edwardstone the best of the 3. Jonbon from Edwardstone, El Fabiolo slightly on the back foot, now back in third, and Jonbon is finding as they go to the second last. Jonbon from Edwardstone, who reached for it, then El Fabiolo, Boot Hill, Elixir de Nuts is down at the second last, went 5th. Jonbon leads the way, Edwardstone chasing, El Fabiolo is beat, the final fence. Jonbon put himself right, Edwardstone chasing, then El Fabiolo, and up the hill. Well, he just keeps on finding. It's Jonbon pulling away from Edwardstone and El Fabiolo and Boot Hill, and it's time for another celebration. Jonbon maintaining his unbeaten record at Sandown and wins the Bet365 celebration chase for the 2nd year running. El Fabiolo might have snatched second from Edwardstone, Boot Hill 4th, a long gap to Nubi Negra, and Editor de Gite has been pulled up.
He's done it again. It is 2 wins in the celebration chase, back-to-back wins for Jonbon, who in so doing makes it 4 from 4 at his beloved Sandown. His jumping wasn't foot perfect, but it was much better than El Fabiolo's, who, to his credit, has rallied for that photo finish for second with Edwardstone, who's run a gallant race. But it is Jonbon We didn't see him in the champion chase. We saw him at Aintree, and 15 days on, he's made it back-to-back Grade 1s within the space of a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that was a really power-packed 2-mile performance from him, wasn't it, Jonbon? He was a little bit slow and hesitant with a few of his jumps, but not as bad as El Fabiolo, who missed too many out. He made a mistake at the first down the back, 2 of the railways fences. He wasn't good either, and he was under pressure turning for home and struggling, El Fabiolo. Flamboyant at times, Jonbon, but Nico de Boinville was aggressive on him, knew the horse's stamina that he had underneath him as well after that 2.5-mile win at Aintree, and he's made the most of that and put a bit of pressure on El Fabiolo's jumping all the way through the race, and the favourite didn't cut the mustard in that department.
That's where he was slow at that point, but the next one, which we're about to see, is where he sort of quickened up again and he seemed to get back into a little bit of a rhythm, but every time you felt like he was back and nearer that sort of jumping action that you're going to need at this speed, he'd hit another one.
Yeah, and that was a mistake from El Fabiolo there, wasn't it? Where just on occasions he has that tendency to get a bit too low, clip the top, and loses a bit of momentum, and he was always having to chase him a little bit to keep up with Jonbon. Paul Townend, he missed that one out a little bit as well, just clipped the top, and just that steady loss of momentum and constant loss of momentum at some of his fences has handed the initiative to Jonbon, who, as we say, he was slow enough at times himself, but ultimately de Boinville was aggressive enough to bring his stamina into play, and there was a few of these that were struggling a fair way out.
Mapped out, isn't it? This is how they wanted to play it in order to exploit the strengths of their horse, because we know based on last time he gets that much further, but also at key parts of this race at a home track, and that's what Willie Mullins called it, you're going to exploit frailties in the favourite.
Yeah, he's gained a length on him there as well, Jonbon, and just the second of the last of the railways, El Fabiolo again clipping the top, so he just hasn't jumped well enough, El Fabiolo, whereas Jonbon has, and he's been given the right type of ride to make the use of his attributes, hasn't he, the winner, and yeah, it's as good a 2-mile performance as he's ever put up, I think, Jonbon.
Kind of got the feeling that this is a track, as mentioned, he's done it in Tingle Creek, he's done it in this race, he's done it in a Henry VIII, but this was all important as well. Options are plenty for him next season. You kind of felt at this point as though Jonbon might have handed the initiative a little bit back to El Fabiolo, but it's the way that he can correct himself after a fence. He wasn't perfect there.
No, I mean, when Jonbon's good he hits a fence on the right stride, he's electric over them, isn't he? And we've seen that right the way through his career. Again, El Fabiolo not good enough at the second last. Now, to his credit, he rallies, El Fabiolo, and I think he's got up for second in the end. He has got up for second, hasn't he, in a tight photo finish with Edward Stone, who himself has run really well.
He has, and we ought to give plenty of praise to him. And actually, between the second last and the last, Nico de Boinville, I'm not sure he would have known exactly what was going on behind, but when he would have felt a presence, I'm sure he probably thought it was El Fabiolo, not Edward Stone, but that horse has run a belter.
He's run really well, Edward Stone, right up to what he's capable of really nowadays. To